The Lone Ranger is a television program that ran for 5 seasons on the ABC network from 1949 to 1957. Clayton Moore stars as the Lone Ranger, along with Jay Silverheels as Tonto. For the first 4 seasons, each year the Lone Ranger ran all 52 episodes from each season consecutively. Then, the following year, would rerun all 52 episodes. This explains how a show 5 seasons long would have a 9-year run. Moore first came to the attention of Lone Ranger co-creator George Trendle when he saw him portray Ken Mason, the grandson of Zorro in the Republic film serial The Ghost of Zorro from the year 1949.
My real identity is to be kept a secret, known only to the 3 of us.
Well, I'll be hanged. You sure got a job cut out for yourself, Reed. I mean, Lone Ranger.
The Lone Ranger first receives his own comic book title from Dell Comics by the year 1948. The stories mostly comprise reprints of the newspaper strips until issue number 38, where original stories were written by Paul S. Newman. The Dell comic book series lasted for a total of 15 years and produced 145 issues in total.
They say you never carry a gun.
I've never felt the need for a gun or a mask.
I find them both useful at times.
The first season would detail the Lone Ranger's canonical origin story over 3 connected episodes, much like the previous film serials. In Part 1, Enter the Lone Ranger, the Butch Cavendish gang ambush a group of Texas Rangers led by Captain Reed. The sole survivor of the massacre is the captain's brother. Tonto comes across the surviving member of the Reed clan and nurses him back to health since he recalls Reed from the days of their youth. A Native American from the Potawatomi tribe, Tonto actually received his very own comic book series from Dell Comics by the year 1950. However, Dell's numbering system is all sorts of screwy, so 4-Color Comics issue 312 is considered the first issue. The second issue, released in the year 1951, is titled Tonto. By the third issue, the series is titled The Lone Ranger's Companion Tonto for the remainder of the 33-issue run.
Me call you Kimosabe. It mean trusty scout. Me never forget you. You remember now?
Yes. You're Tonto.
That's right. Me Tonto. Now me take care of you.
Reed then vows to bring his brother's killers to justice. He creates a mask out of his dead brother's vest and takes on the mantle of the Lone Ranger.
To the world, I'll be buried here, beside my brother and my friends, forever.
You all alone now. Last man. You are Lone Ranger.
Yes, Tonto. I am a Lone Ranger.
In Part 2, the Lone Ranger fights on. The Ranger saves a white stallion from a buffalo attack. Once the horse is nursed back to health, Tonto coins his name as Silver. This is exactly what happens in the radio episode titled The Lone Ranger Finds Silver that aired on August 26 in the year 1935. By the year 1951, even the Lone Ranger's steed Silver got his own comic book. Again, Dell's kooky numbering scheme is back, and Dell 4-Color issues 369 and 392 serve as the first 2 issues. With the third issue released in the year 1952, the numbering scheme and title is normalized as the Lone Ranger's famous horse, Hi-Yo Silver, for its 36-issue run.
He's a beauty, Tonto. A dream horse if I ever rode one.
Him and Scout good friends.
Speaking of Silver, the details behind the Lone Ranger's secret silver mine are revealed as well. The Ranger's friend, Jim Blaine, will help the Ranger dig up and refine the ore to use for financial means, as well as casting his trademark silver bullets.
Silver bullets will serve as sort of a symbol. Tonto suggested the idea.
Symbol? Of what?
A symbol which means justice by law. I want it to become known to all who see the silver bullets that I live and fight only to see the eventual defeat and the proper punishment by law of every criminal in the West.
By criminy, I think you've got something there.
In the third and final chapter, the Lone Ranger delivers Cavendish to the sheriff and a long jail sentence. However, Cavendish would later return in the episode titled Never Say Die, where he orchestrates a jailbreak by using the warden's son as hostage. Much like Joe Chill getting shot by his own men, or Lou Moxon running into an oncoming truck out of panic and fear, Butch Cavendish is ultimately shot down in a final confrontation, not by the Lone Ranger, but by one of his own booby traps that he intended to use on the Ranger himself.
Cavendish, our worst enemy.
The Cavendish gang makes their final appearance in the Season 3 episode titled Gunpowder Joe. Upon hearing of the last remnants of the Cavendish gang, the Lone Ranger is itching to bring them to justice.
These men are the only survivors of the old Cavendish gang, the gang that ambushed my brother and 4 other Texas Rangers. I want to get them, Tonto.
Oftentimes on the television series, people mistake the Lone Ranger for the outlaws he hunts down because he wears a mask. As a viewer, sometimes you're surprised nobody ends up shooting the guy first and asking questions later. Of course, the tried and true method of Lone Ranger verification is when he'll hand the cynical party one of his patented silver bullets. However, once he does this, it usually alleviates all doubt.
It doesn't make sense, a masked man fighting to uphold the law. Unless... Mister, are you the man I've heard stories about? A man who rides a white horse and fires silver bullets?
Like this?
I might have known. You are the man I've heard about.
One way the Lone Ranger would preemptively prevent getting shot down is to infiltrate a town using what I like to call his old-timer disguise. Fairly similar to the way Batman would pull a Henry V to walk amongst the common man, or in Batman's case, common criminals as Matches Malone, the Lone Ranger frequently uses his old-timer identity to get intel on criminals without attracting any attention as a masked man.
Don't ever trust those old prospectors, Bub. They'll fool you every time.
By the third season in 1952, John Hart had taken over as the Lone Ranger from Clayton Moore. In addition, there's also some strange, omniscient narration included in this season's episodes. Often the narration is quite unnecessary, as it typically reiterates what is happening on screen.
A few hours later, in a valley not far from the territorial prison, a masked man on a white horse raced along a trail at an almost unbelievable speed. To almost any other rider, such speed on the twists and turns of the trail would have proven disastrous. But this horse raced seemingly without effort, and its rider without fear. For the great white steed was the famed stallion Silver, and his intrepid rider was none other than the Lone Ranger.
Stanley Andrews, who previously appeared as Captain Smith in the first Lone Ranger film serial, returns as the father of the outlaw Burke gang in the episode titled Trial by Fire.
Sure is terrible what the young generation is coming to nowadays.
It does no good to oppose me.
We'll resume our thrilling story in a moment. But first, a brief pause to bring you a message of interest and importance. And now, once again, we return to our story.
Before playing the Lone Ranger, Hart appeared side by side with Clayton Moore on the episodes Rifles and Renegades as Sergeant of the Guard, as well as Sheriff of Gunstock as Henchman Duke. Similar to the many other famous lead characters who have been swapped out on television programs in later years, to the viewer the change is a bit abrupt and jarring.
I admire your nerve, mister, but not your stupidity.
I have the element of surprise on my side, Darby. They're not expecting me. Sometimes strategy is more important than numbers.
Money, creative differences, and contract disputes have all been cited for Moore's departure from Season 3. However, by Season 4, Clayton Moore had returned to the role. Even with Hart's departure from the series and the label as, quote-unquote, the other Lone Ranger, he would go on to reprise the role on the television series The Greatest American Hero in the episode My Heroes Have Always Been Cowboys in the year 1981, as well as on Happy Days in the episode titled Hi-Yo Fonzie Away from 1982.
I'd like to leave you with something that can stand as a symbol to our meeting and our friendship.
Chuck Courtney first appears as the Lone Ranger's nephew, Dan Reed, in the first season episode titled Sheep Thieves. The character of Dan Reed would go on to appear in a total of 14 episodes, joining the Lone Ranger usually during his summer vacations from school. Dan Reed makes the majority of his appearances throughout season 4, usually filling in for Tonto while he's away. Not only is Dan a blood relation to the Lone Ranger, Dan's horse Victor is actually revealed to be the son of Silver in the episode titled Dan Reed's Sacrifice.
Do you suppose whoever has Victor now is taking good care of him?
Victor's a lot like his father, Silver. They're both able to take care of themselves.
Plus, if you've followed my videos on the history of the Green Hornet, you'll already realize that this makes the Lone Ranger the Hornet's great uncle. Along with the connection from the now Green Hornet comics, the 2006 Dynamite Lone Ranger series contains some wonderful anticipatory moments that give some rather broad hints at the future in store for the descendants of the Reed clan.
He's a fine boy, Tonto.
Soon him be fine man, Kimasabi.
By season 5, the episodes began filming in color, and the episode count had been cut down from 52 episodes to the new standard at the time of 39 episodes. The long-running television series proved to be quite popular and would cause certain alterations to be made to the Dell comic books. Photo covers of Clayton Moore tied in the comic books to the television series, starting from issue 112 all the way to issue 145. Originally, the comic books would continue to utilize a red shirt for the first 36 issues, while the television show aired in black and white. However, once the series began airing in color, the red in the Lone Ranger's outfit became blue by issue number 37 and stayed that way moving onward. The Dynamite Lone Ranger comic book series from 2007 pays homage to the transition, as the first few issues see the Lone Ranger with a red shirt, but eventually by the 5th issue, Tonto would create the more familiar blue shirt for him.
You know, Sergeant, I've always wanted to see the face behind that mask.
Go ahead, then. Unmask him.
I am. Then I'm going to fill him full of lead.
Aside from the 3-part opening story that covers the Lone Ranger's origin and his confrontation with the Butch Cavendish gang, the television series is extremely formulaic. All the other episodes over the 5 seasons are standalone stories. They generally involve the Lone Ranger and Tonto riding into town where they would stop some form of injustice from taking place. While they can be quite entertaining, I wouldn't expect any great character growth or journey over the course of the 5-season run. In many ways, it's a lot like a procedural drama set in the American West. The episodes always conclude as the duo ride off out of town, leaving behind the clueless assisted party wondering who that masked man was.
Gramps, who is he?
My granddaughter is just plumb ignorant. But, why, he's the Lone Ranger.
Sergeant, I've always wanted to see the face behind that mask.
Go ahead, then. Unmask him.
I am. Then I'm going to fill him full of lead.